We have made sure that this was landing in our strategic planning. So our 3-year planning is now, each of them is related to these goals and therefore to the SDG contribution. And this is true for the company as a whole, up to each of our 150 local subsidiaries in the world. That allowed us to continue the incentivization. Sari was talking about incentivization. All our managers are incentivized on CO2 reduction, on employee engagement, on social indicators that we're using, including outside of the company, on top of or aside of being incentivized on the financial performance. And I think this is very important. The governance aspect of it, I think, is equally important, and moving the whole company now into this SDG spirit is right now. We are training our 100,000 people with the support of the FAO, with the support of UNESCO, on assets that are about our goals related to SDGs. And we're actually expecting these 100,000 people to vote. So we expect their voice to be raised to the management about the fact that where they are in the factory, where they are in the sales force, in the marketing team, where are we late, where are we in advance, where should we focus, so that there is a connection between the sort of the long-term planning and where we want to go, as well as with the very local ownership by the teams themselves. And now what we've been also doing is trying to engage finance. Because this is, I have to say, as the CEO of a listed company with 300,000 shareholders and a few very large institutions, of course, being part of our shareholder base, I think finance is probably one of the most obvious excuse, in a way, for CEOs, but also concretely sometime roadblock into moving into the longer term space and the broader space of our contribution as companies to the broader society. For many good reasons. But the message I would like to convey in only 2 minutes is that I think there is a way forward. I think SDGs are providing a language that is equally important for finance and for companies, and that could reunite those together, because if you think about it, it's quite obvious that it's extremely unlikely that financial institutions, investment institutions, would reach their SDG goals if they give themselves SDG goals without the companies or the institutions in which they invest reaching them. So, for instance, we issued, I think, what was the first social bond, not a huge amount, 300 million euros, last winter in our sector at least, which is entirely in the framework of SDGs, which was quite interesting because this was twice oversubscribed by our financial investors. We came up with a very low price. It's a 7-year maturity bond. It will be entirely invested into sustainability activities related to SDGs. So you name them here. We have all of them in the boxes. So outside of Danone or in the health insurance system of our employees worldwide in many developed countries, in the farmers, in the scavengers, in the recycling of plastic, in many aspects of biodiversity, etc., etc. Entirely. And we have the full support of our investor base doing this. A slightly bigger thing that we did was last March, we syndicated 2 billion euros of banking loans, for which the margin that we pay, the interest rate, is going to decline as we are rolling out our SDG agenda, including the B Corp agenda. So we already have 30% of our total sales globally that are certified as B Corp. But these 12 banks, the largest banks in the world, basically, they've come to the conclusion in their very serious credit committee that the credit rating of Danone would be better in 5 years' time, with us being closer to become a global B Corp, for instance, and other SDG-related indicators than we are today. So it means either that we have a higher expectation of returns, this curve that you're talking about, or we have a lower risk. But one way or the other, this is clearly a point where finance has seen that this global sustainability strategy has a price, and the market has been able to put a price on it. Now, my final point is that what's currently missing is the precise link, because we have very, very specific indicators on this money, and we will report every year on all the indicators on how these funds have been used to our investor community, but not in a language that is the SDG language, because that language does not exist yet. And imagine that it exists, and that these big banks, these big investors have their own SDGs. We'd be able to say, here, we contribute to this bit of your SDG as finance or as a financial investor. Here we contribute this bit, and today we're not able to do that. They're happy because this is ESG, this is B Corp, this is many things. But I think the reporting about SDG will bring this unique language where everyone will be able to understand how each other, we are building the bricks of each other in terms of coming to the SDGs, including for finance, which I think is deeply what's needed and now hopefully possible.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Wow. I've been working in financial sector since the beginning of my career. It's truly amazing to see the evaluation and the evolution that we have in terms of management, governance, talking about impact, not only in results. We start to talk about value, not only in results. We start to talk about outputs, outcomes, and touching impact by SDG framework. Scott, just for you, and as a person that has a very good and long experience with investors in many aspects, regarding the Action Platform Financial Innovation for SDGs, what is your perspective in terms of the moment nowadays and the evolution for the investors? Are they talking about it, inviting companies like these examples to do more sustainable, to make the commitments to reporting in terms of SDG? I'd like to have your thoughts in this 5 minutes, and after, if you're gonna mention something like that. This investor side used to be the afraid side in some ways for many companies. Could you? Thank you.
Yeah, there's
no work.
switch here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess to frame it this way, I mean, for a medium and long-term investor, there's clearly you can't separate sustainability from financial performance, and you can't separate it from economic growth. And So as a company, we manage money for millions of investors, a lot of institutional, very big investors, and a lot of small investors. And what we see is a tremendous interest in quantifying the role that they're playing, how their investment dollars are contributing to sustainability goals, and also how it's contributing to their financial performance. And the two are linked. There's no question academic studies, if you go back, show that, even following simple metrics, you get better risk-adjusted performance by focusing on sustainability criteria. Now, we have a lot more data in the last few years. We will have a lot more data in the years ahead. And what we see is a big interest in companies, and of course, global compact partner companies are really leading the charge, but in reporting more. And that, we think, is to the benefit of all investors. And so we see this as sort of it's building momentum, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. And so we think that ultimately our investors, when we look at it today, they care very much about sustainability. Increasingly, companies are reporting in terms of SDGs. You see it if you survey global compact companies, tremendous progress, and that's something we should all feel pretty good about. I mean, things generally happen pretty slowly, but look what's happened in company reporting and the focus on SDGs in just the last couple of years. We did a survey companies that we invest in, and we found that, and these are not even global compact companies, most of these, 60% are either reporting or very close to thinking about reporting on some element of the SDGs. So
Wow.
It's really catching on. And so we would describe it as, it is clearly the language of sustainability that we should be speaking. It is a common language that will allow us to accelerate partnership at every level. And so that's why we're very excited about it. We're excited about the role we can play as a company in pushing the industry forward in terms of accelerating the use of the SDGs, and concepts like the SDG bond concept that we're happy to say we have a blueprint out today with the Global Compact that we can all use. We think that's going to be really impactful in opening up $1 trillion plus marketplace and really accelerating the use of SDG metrics. So even if companies don't issue SDG bonds yet, it's really going to help us to quantify and help accelerate the measurement that's out there for investors. So I think that's that's something that everyone in the audience, we tell our investors, every individual and every company, certainly, as well as every official entity, touches almost all the SDGs in some way. On a very routine basis. And so there's no reason why almost every company can't follow in the footsteps of others and issue a sustainability bond. Every medium and large-sized company that issues or leads capital could think about issuing a sustainability bond, an SDG bond, and reporting on that to the benefit of investors. And so we think that's the direction things are headed. You've seen the explosion in green bonds in the last several years, and I think that's a good metric. Realize that could just be a subset, of what can happen with SDG bonds. So that's why I say it really is a trillion, multi-trillion dollar sort of opportunity, and we're quite convinced it's going to get there in the next few years.
Very good. I was wondering how amazing we've heard about it, and in my previous experience, investors could change a way that you think results, because they move capital as the financial sector, as the partnership. And regarding partnership, I love the idea of have SDGs as a framework and as a point of view in terms of result. I heard about it 2 years ago when I was visiting an investor from my company in Sweden, and they say something like SDG, we're gonna be the new ISG. It seems for me the way that they approach an investment as a form is a very nice way of investors having a contribution in the world that we like to have. We could design the way that we have the investment, the way that we approach and only sell the investments for the business side. Very good. I'd like to have a question for both of you, Saori and Emmanuel. We are leading great companies in very tough times regarding and using SDG platforms as a framework, as a way to decide and invest and manage in your companies. I'd like to listen from you the perspective of collaboration. How about collaboration could help companies, sectors, and maybe investors after